Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and I want to thank Pastor Pokpoju for inviting me here today. I was here about 10 years ago when you started, I think, the maiden edition of the platform, and I recollect it was a very small event in VI then, and we were all outdoors. To see what has evolved in 10 years, to see this magnificent building and the visionary leadership of Pastor Poju Oyemade is simply exemplary, and I'd like to say well done to you for this achievement. The platform today has become probably the leading speaking platform in Nigeria, and I think that is no mean feat. And I think when people set their minds to do things at the right level, they will be accepted, and people will give it the necessary mileage needed for it. In the 10 years or so that I was here last, I've also evolved as a person. I used to be a development lawyer. Today, I'm in the arts and culture sector. When I left my A-levels, when I did my A-levels, 1986, when I finished, I recollect that I wanted to do history. And my father was not taking it at all. He didn't understand that concept. He wanted me to study law. He is a lawyer. And naturally, in the 80s, most people did degrees that were called professional courses. And we did not encourage our children to do arts and culture. What is interesting today is I've been asked to speak about arts and development in the same vein as economic development. In Nigeria, that is a rarity. And it is something that is showing you that we are changing as a nation. And I think kudos needs to be given to all those who have taken the time out to develop this industry with little or no support from government. Today, Nigeria is an oil-dependent economy. Everything we used to rely on in the past, from our rich groundnut pyramids, which I saw earlier on the screen, to our cotton, to everything that made Nigeria what it was before oil was discovered, has been abandoned in this country. We no longer rely on any form of productivity apart from all of us waiting for oil and oil revenue. Clearly, there is a problem, because if oil was doing so great, we won't be where we are as a nation. The poverty levels are rising, and today we have 24% unemployment rate in Nigeria. Today, Nigeria has the largest youth population in Africa. We have 33.5 million youths aged between 15 and 24. Out of these, 19 million of them live in the rural areas. What is interesting is 19 million of these people also want to migrate to the urban areas in search of work. But the reality on ground is those of us who are in Lagos realize that there are no jobs. There are no jobs for our youths, so we keep bringing people in, and eventually we all run into trouble because there's nothing for them to live on. So we banter a lot of figures. You know, everybody comes, they tell you Nigeria's GDP in the year 2013, when it was rebased, was $253 million or something like that, $1 billion. The reality on ground is, how does that affect the average man on the street? Our children are not able to get works. There are no jobs available. The universities that we have these days are churning out students that are not employable. The skill sets that are being offered in universities are not relevant for modern day society. The universities themselves are under-equipped. And on the part of the youths, there is an unwillingness on their part to learn vocational skills and technical skills, because there is no prestige attached to these jobs. In Nigeria, like I said earlier, if you're not a lawyer, if you're not a doctor, people perceive you to be a failure. But if you look around the world, people work in the vocational field and in the technical field. You pay as much as you would a lawyer. So it's about perception. It's about how we have packaged this industry as a nation. So going forward, we need to start asking ourselves, what are we doing wrong? And what do we need to do as a nation to address this rural-urban drift? If you ask me, what we need to do is to look at what we used to do in the past. What was Nigeria known for? It is a fact that Nigerians and Africans are creative people. If you go as far back as 1000 BC and you look at the history of the Nok culture, arts, it was all from Africa in Nigeria, as a matter of fact. If you look back at what our forefathers did in the area of textile, in the area of bronze, the Benin bronze industry, it is legendary. If you travel around the world today, I've been to museums in England where our bronze and our artifacts are packaged, and we all look at them like there's some rarity, but they actually came from Africa and from Nigeria and from Benin Kingdom specifically. But the difference is, when these people take our culture, they repackage it and put it together in a sellable form, and people are attracted to the way it's presented. That is a problem that we have in Nigeria. So if we're going to solve this issue of lack of jobs and poverty in our nation, we have to start looking inwards and asking ourselves, what can we do as a people to stop this reliance on oil? Oil has been a blessing, but it has also been a curse in a lot of ways, because it is not effectively managed, and those that are in control of our resources do not care about the generality of the people that they're supposed to be taking care of. If you look at the countries that have oil today, if you look at Kuwait, if you look at Saudi Arabia, they are not at the level of development that Nigeria is today. Correct me if I'm wrong. So the reality on ground is something is missing. Maybe if we all de-emphasize the role of oil in our economy, maybe we will make progress as a group. I'm sure a lot of us in this room have not been touched by the oil wealth. Yes or no? So let's ask ourselves, what really are we talking about? Arts, culture, and economic development. What is arts? What is culture? You know, typically when you talk to people, a lot of people assume that art is just a bunch of people who do basket weaving and who occasionally do some tie and dye fabrics. You know, it's seen to be so mundane. But arts and culture embodies a lot more than that. If you look at the United Nations classification, especially UNCTAD, they classified arts and culture to include the following. Any form of design that you find going on in the world today, including fashion, handbags, belts, accessories, any type of accessory you can think of, interior decoration, furniture, making of furniture in any part of your house, toys, dolls, any form of toys that you can think of, graphics and architecture, including drawings, plans, jewelry. You know, every piece of jewelry is a form of art. If you look at the arts and crafts section, carpet weaving, yarn, making of lace, hand-woven, needlework, rugs, wickerware, when you make basket work, wickerware, paperware, and other things like candles, fur skins, etc. Now, if you go to visual arts, it includes photography, paintings, sculpture, antiques, etc. And there's also something known as cultural industries. These are the industries that house our culture and our heritage. These include our museums. It includes all of the things that you call tourist work, basically festivals and carnivals. And it includes all of those things that you and I would typically want to go and do to relax on a daily basis. Now, having defined what constitutes art and culture, I think it's pertinent for us to ask ourselves the question that countries that do not have natural resources, what have they been able to do to enable economic development in their countries? I'm going to look at certain countries of the world that have been able to do this, with arts and culture being the driver of their economic growth. If you go to India, India a couple of years ago was seen just like Nigeria. But in less than 2 decades or so, India has changed its economic profile through the use of art and culture. If you look at what they've done in the area of Bollywood, Bollywood today is singularly the largest producer of movies in the world. They have exceeded Hollywood in that area. I'm sure somebody somewhere in this room has seen a Bollywood movie before with the Shashi Kapoors and all of them, right? Great. Okay, the same thing goes for technology. Anytime you travel abroad, call a call center. Invariably, you'll hear somebody tell you, hello, how are you? India. You're talking to India in London. Because they have outsourced all of their jobs in technology to India because of the cheaper services and good quality. This is what India has been able to do in 2 decades or so through arts and culture based on our definition. The same goes for Mexico. If you look at Telemundo, a lot of people watch Telemundo, and Mexican culture has now transcended even Nigeria through its people's creativity, not oil. They've come together as a group of people and they've taken over the airwaves. Increasingly, you're having Mexican cultural imperialism even in Nigeria.